honorable faculty members, officers and staffs of NITIE, media personnel, and my dear friends. It is with much pride and elation that I welcome all to the inaugural edition of Prerana International Business Conclave under the banner of Avartan 2020, NITIE's annual business festival that encompasses business, culture, and sport. The Prerana International Business Conclave has been incepted to bring together some of the world's highly illustrious leaders to discuss and share their views on the trends and contemporary issues of the industry and give a platform for students to learn about the international business ecosystem. This year, we have lined up some of the global business leaders to enlighten us on the central theme, recovery of global industry post-COVID and the opportunities it presents. The National Institute of Industrial Engineering was established in year 1963 by the Government of India and the United Nations International Labour Organization. The endeavor was envisioned to create a center for excellence that would generate solutions to conundrum of an aggressively expanding industrial order and to upskill the next generation of techno managers. Today, NITI is proud to have nurtured bright, talented leaders who have made their imprint on the global business and continue to do so with their rigor and virtue. Avartan, the annual management festival of NITI, Mumbai has been the epitome of fostering industrial relations since 1995. In its 2 decades of inspiring solutions, Avartan presents a unique penumbra of corporate and academic areas to foster excellence and innovation involving management concepts and practices. I welcome you all to the much awaited event, Prerana International Business Conclave 2020. I now request Madam Dean Student Affairs, Professor Hema Date ma'am, to welcome the esteemed guests.
Aditya. It's indeed a matter of great pride and elation for us to welcome our guests to the maiden edition of International Business Conclave of Avartan 2020. We have with us Mr. Aditya Betala. He is a banking, payments, and technology expert with over 16 years of executive experience, leading key initiatives from strategy through execution. He has a proven record of increasing revenues, EPS, and market share while also reducing cost and enhancing process efficiencies. He's a trusted advisor to C-suite on a broad range of issues, including business and operation strategy, M&A and fintech partnership, product design and commercialization, risk and compliances, and data monetization. His broad experience includes Visa, PwC, Berkshire Hathaway, and Infosys. He earned his MBA from University of Maryland and his BTech from Anna University. Joining us from the US, Mr. Betla, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. How are you doing, ma'am?
Welcome. Mr. Manish Singh is a cloud network transformation expert and regularly consults with various telco organizations globally in realizing their business objectives in their network transformation and cloud journey. He has previously held several positions with Infosys, Altran, Lucent, and Ubiquitous. Mr. Singh founded the startup system Test Solutions Limited, which cater to the 3G, 4G network simulators area. Early in this journey, he had also held the rank of flight lieutenant in the Indian Air Force. Joining us from the UK, Mr. Singh, a warm good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to you, sir. Thank you. We are privileged to welcome Dr. Narayan Prasad, co-founder, Chief Operation Officer at SatSearch.co, a global marketplace for space based in the Netherlands. He also serves as a partner to Space Park Kerala, a government of Kerala initiative to develop a dedicated space economy hub in India. He believes that there is an opportunity to create a $25 billion space industry ecosystem in India by 2030, which can take space-based products and services from India to the rest of the world. He previously served as an associate research fellow at the European Space Policy Institute, where he contributed to enhancing cooperation between Europe and India in space. He has authored over 75 articles in various national and international publications and was educated in India, Germany, Sweden, and France. He is also elected member of the International Institute of Space Law and an awardee of Emerging Space Leaders by the International Astronautical Federation. Joining us from Netherlands, Dr. Prasad. A warm good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome you, sir.
Thank
We
you
are
very much.
excited to have you all with us here at NITIE Mumbai and learn from your wisdom and expertise. Without further ado, I welcome the moderator for the evening, Professor K. S. Ranjani, to take the session forward. Ranjani, Professor Ranjani, please. Yeah,
thank you, Professor Hema Date. Thank you for the introduction, and I extend a very warm welcome to all our guests for the evening in India, for what we expect is going to be a scintillating session. This cannot get any more international, can it? So we have our guests from the US and UK and Germany. So this is really going to be international, and we are looking forward to wisdom from you from literally all the corners of the globe. So the topic for the day is, of course, it must start with a positive connotation, because we are actually discussing a post-COVID world, and what we have now got used to referring in India as green shoots. So what we see today in India is almost the markets trading at the pre-COVID levels. We are cautiously optimistic at this point in time. We are seeing some green shoots. We are seeing growth spurts in some of the nascent industries. That has been the transaction. So at least this is one area, that is digital financial payments, something that we have seen unprecedented growth in the pandemic time. Probably unknowingly, the foundation was laid during demonetization. And we are also anticipating that we will slowly, recover very painfully, very slowly, and a lot of innovations will guide us in the post-pandemic time. So I think we have excellent speakers here today who are going to throw light on this topic, and we are all very eager to get the key takeaways from you. So can I invite Mr. Aditya to start off the discussion for the day and his views, especially from the finance business perspective? What are the opportunities, challenges he sees in the post-COVID?
Absolutely, and thank you, Dean Hema, Professor Anjani, and a big shout out to Roli and the entire management team for getting us all together. So again, a big thank you for gathering us. Been asked to provide some context around this topic, very pertinent today. So I'm going to touch upon three key areas as I kick this off. The first and foremost thing is, let's put this in perspective. I'm going to start with something that's obvious. This is a public health crisis, and any post-world requires a solution to that public health issue, right? The economic crisis that we are seeing is just a manifestation. It's a derivative of that public health issue. So unless you have a solution to that public health crisis, you are not coming out of this. So there's no post-world without a vaccine of sorts, right? Second, this crisis, both public and economic, has put the spotlight on three key entities, irrespective of which geography, which region, which country you're in. The first is the government. And again, the way these three react determines how quickly we come out of this situation, out of this economic crisis, right? The first one is the government itself, and how quickly, how swiftly it mobilizes its resources to slow down the infection rate, to reduce the number of deaths, and then to use the tools that it has, whether it's monetary, fiscal, stimulus, to kickstart the economy. That is very important to getting us out of here. The second is the business, the corporations itself. And the advent and the importance of the business with a conscience has never been more important. So that's the second entity that will help us get through this, whether they take care of their employees, their consumers, keeping them first in mind and not think short-term P&L. That's critical. The third entity is the people. It's you and I, which brings me to the third point, right? This is my final point on this topic. And if you take away nothing else, take away this, right? The economy is built with you and me. It's us. So if you and I come out of this fine, the economy will take care of itself, right? So we are the producer, we are the consumer, we are going to build multi-billion-dollar businesses. You guys are going to start companies that are going to last 100 years, 1,000 years, or whatever that is. We are going to become carbon neutral. We are going to decrease the wage gap. We are going to eradicate social injustice, and we are going to dance on that broken glass from the shattered ceiling. We are going to do all of that, provided you and I come out of this healthy, both physically and mentally. So the economy will do just fine as long as you and I come out of this strong. Back to you, Professor. Sorry, Professor, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. That was quite a start. I mean, you gave us the context from which we are going to build more arguments today, and possibly, I think today, end of session, like I said, we're going to all leave on some optimistic note. I say this because I'm about to invite Manish. He kind of said no for any pessimism right when we were beginning our informal talks. So, and I think without technology today, we are nowhere. None of us could have dreamt of, getting through one day in this entire pandemic without technology. So I invite Manish to just share his insights, both from a technology perspective as well as his world wisdom on this.
Thank you, Professor Rajini, and thank you for inviting me to this session. I think if I could start by saying that I don't kind of agree with the statement of saying that recovery of the economy or recovery of the situation globally. I would rather call it transformation. And I think to me, it's a time when everything's going to transform into something new. I have been fortunate to be part of the last two big downturns in the industry. That was back in the late 2010 or 2009 timeframe, and prior to that 98, 99 timeframe, when that Y2K happened in late 90s, and then in 2007, 2008 timeframe, there was this overall global crisis and so on. But one thing that you will remember out of all those different downturns were that companies like Uber, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Microsoft, even the big companies like Microsoft, Disney, General Electric, General Motors, those were the ones really started at the big downturns. Even Google, to a certain extent, it really started making big paces only after those downtrends happened. So to me, and let's get closer to home to India, right? I mean, Reliance Jio, if you see, it really started to make big paces in around 2007, 2008 timeframe, where the global industry outlook was doom and gloom. Everything was going to be so low that everyone used to wonder, hey, what is going to happen to me? So from that perspective, I don't believe that there is a big impact to the overall the job security, or from the perspective of finding new jobs or industry. The only thing that's going to change is that the jobs are going to transform. So you're probably not going to have too many jobs next year in the travel and hospitality industry. If you are an aspiring pilot, you've got to wait for two to three more years. If you're looking to get into real estate industry, probably you'll have to, or corporate real estate industry, again, you will have to wait a little more time to really get back into the real levels of prior to COVID. If you see what's happening around the world, this year itself, Amazon's actually added $4 billion to their expense globally of increasing their overall real estate or overall delivery mechanisms, logistics, etc. You name it, there are about 100 companies that are big companies like Microsoft, Tesla, Tencent in the gaming industry, Facebook, and of course the social media industry and so on. They have added huge amounts of market capitalizations to their share price. Why is that? Because they're not really going to be, they're not directly affected when it comes to this health crisis. Yes, it is a crisis from a health perspective. It is a crisis that you and I cannot sit in front of each other and discuss in a room. But there are technology areas, like you talk about it from Teams perspective. No one heard about Teams and Zoom previously, right? And these companies have become multi-billion-dollar industries from a meeting perspective. You talk about delivery of food, for example, food retail industry on an online delivery, etc. That's big time, big now. I mean, Uber Eats in the UK has suddenly become such a big thing because everyone wants food delivered at home. Human behavior doesn't change that much when you are stopped from meeting person to person. So you still need food, you still need to buy things, you still got to get things delivered and so on. So from that perspective, I do believe that the overall downturn, yes, it's there. Yes, right now we are feeling doom and gloom sitting at home. I've not been able to go out for the last 9 months from my house for my travel. Last year, I did close to about 200,000 air miles. Suddenly that's down to zero. Has that affected my work? No, absolutely not. In fact, I have been able to reach out to the same clients because they have accepted now that I cannot be in front of them. And I'm actually selling to them. I'm working with them, delivering the same kind of pitches. The only thing is it's all remote. But yes, I mean, there is an aspect of not being able to feel face to face and then have those discussions with people. That will come back the moment this vaccine is there, the moment we start to feel more safe. In the next 2-3 months, at the most 3 to 4 or 6 months, we should all be back talking to us face to face and each other. And I don't see that that this is going to be that big an impact. Only fact is, and I agree with Aditya totally, how good we are coming out of it. Are we all doom and gloom? Are we all looking at saying that, hey, nothing's going to happen for me and I'm just going to keep mulling and then keep trying to do something? I'm sorry, no. You've got to think big, and some of the biggest startups happened out of these recessions that happened in there. So I would say that, at least from the industry I come from, IT, telecom, cloud, media, internet, 5G, 4G. In fact, the governments, for example, Government of India is spending a lot on Make in India now, right? I mean, why is that? That's because they are now realizing that they can't be dependent on the outside world. So the forces are shifting. So you're going to have such a big shift of money spending happening that you don't even need to come out of India, because you've got so much potential maybe happening within India that tomorrow, maybe 1 or 2 years from now, India will be developing their own networks. India is already doing a lot on the satellite front, and I'm sure that Dr. My friend from Germany, he's going to talk about it from a satellite communication perspective. So there is a lot of growth that's going to happen. Just keep yourself prepared for that. That's all I would say.
So I was not wrong when I said that he's going to leave. At least all my audience for today, very enthused, because I can see Roli smiling, I can see Aditya smiling. So you did put a smile on the faces of all of my students who are anticipating gloom and doom. So no, it's just transformation,
Oh yeah, so, absolutely. I come from a transformation background, so I know the gap that I need to go. So I go into a company and I say, look, you are at this stage right now and you want to get here, right, from A to B. So if I look at the delta between, or a gap analysis that you guys know better than me actually, when you do that gap analysis between where you are and where the world or situation is going to be, you will realize yourself that there is actually a very small part of that is not going to carry forward. There's a big part of it that's actually going to become bigger. So you got to think like that and think at the positive side of it, because the negatives are too many. Media is there. Everyone's trying to talk to you about it. Hey, everything is going to die and all that. Ignore that. Focus on what you're doing.
Yeah. So quite true. People have to eat. They have to sleep. They need to travel.
Yeah.
They need to talk to each other. They need to continue to consume health services. So we are not going anywhere. So things are going to certainly, just transform a little bit. So I think the very important takeaway, at least for the audience here, is to be ready for change, is to be ready to pick up new skills as and when you will need them. So we're going to probably have a more detailed discussion about this when I come back to you later and ask you some of the questions from the students. But I think here's a very, very important takeaway from here, for especially for the current youngsters, that you need to be always willing to transform, learn, transform, readapt to any kind of challenge. So this is for you like a laboratory situation, where you get the time to adapt. You still are inside a protected environment. So with this, I now invite our third speaker for the day, Narayan. So we have actually, most of us, I think, I will say that we are illiterates when we speak to you, because we don't understand much of what you do. We've seen the transformation through technology. We've seen the transformation, especially in the way financial services are consumed. But we all do understand from a gut feel that, space and remote technologies and the kind of big technologies that people like you deal with, it's going to affect us in ways that we may not really be able to fathom. So I request you to enlighten us today. I want you to start with really what it means to be a space entrepreneur. I'm very eager to know.
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Basically, space is another area of entrepreneurship like any other area. We have people in finance, in telecom, in cloud, whatever, XYZ. It's any area of entrepreneurship like any other. But the only problem is that it is fantasized or romanticized or science fictionized a lot more than the others. And it takes a little bit more effort to understand the physics, the technology behind, and to put together a team. And the cost of doing that is very difficult, also because you cannot create the environment of space sitting inside a garage very easily as you would with any other technology to roll it out to test. So that's the most difficult part of space, right? So that makes it really difficult for anybody to do it. That being said, continuing from what Aditya and Manish had to say, I would say that in our industry, what happened in the 1991 liberalization is happening today in the space industry in India, with the COVID taking, making sure that it happens. Because as a part of the 91 reforms, areas such as defense and space were not liberalized. And maybe India was not also prepared for it at that time, because the private sector was not ready to take up those jobs at that particular point of time, right? But today in 2020, we are kind of more than ready to take up that kind of job. And my company is a typical example of it. If the regime or the sector was liberal enough for private companies like us to operate, we would have set up in India. But due to many of the constraints, we have to set up abroad in Europe or wherever. And today, we are also looking at what transformation can happen in India for companies like us to also do business there. But at the same time, I am working with tens of entrepreneurs that are in India who are looking at kicking off their own products completely from India, and they are pushing for all of these reforms. And I'm happy that government of India is putting out all of these new draft policies that are specific to the space industry, to make sure that this is an industry that will build as a parallel to the telecommunications industry or the biotech industry or any other tech industry that has come up in a very strong sense in India in the last couple of decades. So that, I think, will be very, very interesting, because so far, there's been only ISRO as an OEM in India, where you have only one government entity doing a lot of the space products and services development, which means that the supplier base around it is very much constrained to doing business with them. And also they act mostly as vendors to what they provide as services, but they are not, they don't have the appetite or the policy, narratives that are available for them to produce their own products and services. So this is one of the reasons why you don't see a Reliance or a Tata or a Mahindra or whoever it is having their own space division to create their own satellite products, right? So, which means that with these measures that are coming into play, it's not just the startups that will enter the game or which have already entered the game. Startups can only do so much. They are very volatile. Only a percentage of them will be successful. It's the big companies like Reliances, the Tatas, the Mahindras that have to enter the game and put the kind of investment that is needed to transform the whole landscape. So I see myself, very positive about this, especially coming out of India, because we have 60 years of experience of doing space. We have great engineers, we have great innovators, we have great entrepreneurs. We understand problems, and also the kind of problems that we can solve from space for India can be a product that you can sell in Africa, you can sell in Latin America, you can sell in Southeast Asia. You cannot take a problem that an Indian farmer is facing. You can't solve an American problem, farmer's problem, and take it to India, because the farm sizes and the mechanics are very different, right? But you can take the problems that you solve for an Indian farmer using satellite technology and take that to Africa and Latin America and sell that, right? So that's what is going to happen in India for the next 10 years. And I'm sure that we will go on. I've been mapping some of this personally. I think we only create over the last maybe a few years, we've created probably like a few thousand jobs in space industry directly and indirectly over the last decade or so every year. But I'm sure that will become 10 times in the next 10 years.
So there are more words of optimism there, more messages of optimism. And yeah, I think most of us audience, we got a flavor of what is possible from space entrepreneurship. We will probably discuss a little more. There are some questions specifically addressed to each of you. But I just want to start off some thought process. I'm just seeking the views of Aditya here. I'm seeing that in the the pandemic or even before that, as far as the Indian context is concerned, the wallets have been a very huge, the adoption has been quite unprecedented. So are we seeing today a situation where we are going to have all low value transactions done through wallets and all high value transactions done through cards? Is that neat division of market something that we are seeing? And if yes, what are the implications? What is it that we are looking at?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And again, Professor, it's India, and we are seeing that in an explosive way in India, but this is happening even in the US and in other places of the world itself. And I know this is a topic you're passionate about, the whole concept about financial inclusivity, right? So the size of the transaction wouldn't matter as much, right? As long as you have a smartphone. So whether it's a $5 transaction, a $50, a $500 transaction, it wouldn't really matter as long as you have the digital tools and you have it in your palm to make those transactions. The question then becomes is how do you weave the experience together? Because about 5-7 years ago, payments was an actual thought. You would go to a website, you would go to a shopping mall, and you will select what you want to buy. And then when it's time to buy, you will take your wallet out physically or virtually, and then you will make a payment. What Ubers, the technology and the payment companies have done at this point is made payments an afterthought. You don't even have to think about it, and make it very seamless with your entire buying experience. So whether it's your Dunzo, when you're sending stuff from one place to another, it's the experience. You don't think about payments, and that's the goal. You don't want to be thinking about payments. That's a utility, and you want to focus on the experience, whether it's a service or a product. So I don't think the transaction value itself should matter much. It is the experience of how you make that payment and how you make that purchase or use a service that will determine whether a service is successful or not, a payment wallet or a card is successful or not.
So there's a spin-off question just out of curiosity. So are we also going to see the kind of people who start off with wallets moving or graduating to card? I mean, is that something visible to you at this point?
Yeah. So I mean, coming from Visa, we want everybody to use a card, right? But that said, that's not the goal. Again, the type of instrument you use shouldn't really matter. Whether you use your debit card, your credit card, whether you use your Paytm wallet or your whatever currency that you might have stored, payment should not matter. It should not factor. If you are seeing payment as a stop, then the chain is broken and the experience is not what it needs to be. So, I mean, again, the way I look at it is payments is something that should be behind the scenes and not really, I'm using a credit card versus I'm using a Paytm. It should not matter. Money is money, whether you use cash or otherwise. We don't want to use cash. We want to use some form of digital, currency, and the instrument shouldn't matter. Manish, you had something to add here?
If only I can go off mute. Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing. I had this incident with my daughter, and she looked at my wallet, and I still carry a wallet around with me, right? I know I stuff the cards and everything in there, and she says, "Oh, that is so old," and she, for her, she doesn't even carry her card. She doesn't carry cash. She doesn't carry anything except her mobile phone. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, this generation and going forward, we should be looking at everything happening seamlessly. And I totally agree with you, Aditya, that you wouldn't need to worry about payments at all and the security part of it. It will happen automatically for you with all the different technologies that are coming in.
I tend to agree with that. So I have a question now specifically on space. So Sputnik 1 was the first artificial satellite in space. However, since then we have added more than 6,000 artificial satellites, of which almost 60% are defunct, which constitutes space debris. With increasing dependence on information, surveillance, and monitoring, this number is bound to rise. How do you think space as an industry can handle the problem of space debris? So this is a question from one of our students.
So, the parallel is very simple. It's airline. You do know that when airline traffic increased, there was also crashes in the air between airlines, although people thought, sky is so big that no two planes can crash ever. So the role of ICAO, as a UN body, made sure that the countries talk to each other and airplanes can know where each other, are located in air or on the ground and everything else. And they solved that problem systematically to make sure using technology, ground and in air and so on. So, and from space today as well, you can track aircraft from space as well today. So that's how, the airline industry solved the problem of airline traffic. And this is how a new stream of in space industry called space situational awareness has come up, which is basically knowledge of where objects are in space, like objects are in the air. But essentially people are installing today both ground-based radars, lasers, and space-based satellite elements to map each and every piece of debris up in space. And there have been warnings that are issued to satellites that might collide or so on. So the most recent ones are to the International Space Station, where 5 or 6 human beings are present, and their safety is very important for the humankind. So that's how, things are going to get solved. The thing is, there's always a solution to problems. Question is, how big is the problem and how easy is it to tackle it, and who's going to pay for it at the end, right? So it's all the space debris problem is very much like a climate change problem, because there's pieces of debris that's been there for like 60 years, and the question is who's going to pay for the cleanup. And now the debate on climate change is very similar. There's been countries that have been polluting, for the last 400 years to the Industrial Revolution, and they may not be able to pay for the entire part of 400 years. And that's the question that we need to ask in the space side as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So we have another question. This is for Manish. Tech Mahindra has recently partnered with Subex, a telecom analytics solution provider, to minimize fraud and drive operational efficiencies for global telecom operators through use of blockchain-based smart contracts. How does it achieve the end goal of how smart contracts can be used in other areas to drive operational efficiencies?
No, thanks for asking that question. I come from the telecom background, so I'm not even aware of that particular contract. But let me tell you about what Tech Mahindra's position is from a digital perspective. About 40 to 50% of our revenue comes from digital space itself. So if you talk about from a payments perspective or working with partners like Subic Systems and so on, we see value in all that's happening from technology perspective, working on analytics or AI space. So there is a huge amount of focus on AI. And I don't know if you have recently seen a recent Cadbury ad, which talked about connecting small retailers or those shop owners locally to the consumer directly through YouTube ads. I don't know how many of you have seen that. So those are the things that are becoming possible with having AI and analytics built into the need of the hour. And the need of the hour is that you're going to need to have those small businesses connecting up to the consumer. And how do you do that is through these digital means. Now, I don't know about that specific area because I don't come from that group within Tech Mahindra. It's a 130,000 strong company. But if you ask me anything on the telecom, I would be happy to answer, go deep in there.
So I think there's a little bit of curiosity about blockchain and blockchain applications. So that's been, I think, that's been one of the favorite questions for students always. So a little bit on the future of blockchain.
I think Aditya possibly would know more about blockchain than me. I come from a mobile communication background.
So any of you can take this question.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do my best, but again, that's a dangerous territory for me to be getting into. You don't want me to be talking about that, but I'll try to take a stab. So recognizing blockchain came through and became mainstream after Bitcoin, right? But the benefits of blockchain expand beyond just financial services industry. What blockchain is doing here is creating a democratic way of identifying what where anything could be coming from. So just think about the supply chain. So if I'm consuming something, if I'm consuming some food, how has it been sourced from one place to another? And blockchain can help you say that yeah, this was grown organically, this was grown with fair trade kept in mind. So things like that is what blockchain enables. Now, the specific technology, again, that's not me. I'm not the right person for that. But there are implications across the board. Think about sourcing diamonds. Is it a blood diamond or not? So what blockchain does is creates that repository of how any product or service changes hands and ensure that it's all documented and something that can be easily referenced.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we have a question for you. The pandemic has made access to formal credit difficult for SME businesses and marginalized individuals due to a lot of documentation such as income proof and statement of cash flows. So what are your views on emerging fintechs in the field of alternate lending? And of course, I think they want to know about the government support.
There you go. So let's rephrase that question, right? The question, if I may, is not, hey, the pandemic has caused this problem. This problem was always there, right? The pandemic has just exacerbated this problem, right? And this is true across the board. It's more so in India because of the informal nature of how finance of how business and finance is conducted. But the problem exists everywhere. Let me start with the US and then we can expand to India. So in the US itself, and this is something very different from the last financial crisis. Again, like I said, this is a health crisis, but it has impacted some parts of the society more than the other. So in this particular case, what the government did is introduce a stimulus focused on the small businesses. I said the other big entity that we need to factor, and the spotlight was put on that, is the big corporations or big business. In this case, the big banks, as well as the Visas of the world. So now the government, instead of them sending like stimulus checks, which might take 7, 10, 14 days for it to get to the right person, is there a way to send this digitally? And is there a way to send this stimulus digitally? And that's where the private companies have partnered with the government to ensure that the small businesses are getting that money pretty quickly so that they can stay afloat. They can make their payday. They can invest in their own businesses. They can, going back to Manish, what you were saying, transform their businesses. As a restaurant, I am not going to, allow people to come and sit in. People are not standing in line to come and sit in. How do I transform my IT infrastructure to be able to take the online order and deliver curbside, right? So things like that actually came forefront, and those businesses that could transform pretty quickly in an agile way remained in business, and the others unfortunately could not. So coming back to India and the alternate credit and the informal credit, there are, again, it's all based on data. So yeah, we are still building our infrastructure in terms of the of what we call here the FICO score, your personal credit score. But there are other things that you do on an everyday basis that should inform how good your credit standing is. You pay your utility bills, you may pay your rent, you have a paycheck, you might have a a car loan, an auto loan of sorts. You might be paying your monthly EMI. So all of this should factor whether you're a small business, if you're trying to get a personal loan, or if you're trying to get something larger. All of this data point should factor into whether you are a credible borrower, a responsible borrower or not, right? So that's what I would think. And again, Manish, you mentioned this. There is a huge potential, especially in India, to invest in those fintechs that focus on this problem, because it is such a fragmented market out there.
Well, you're right. I mean, if here in the UK and in the Western world, everyone's driven by this thing called credit score, right? I mean, if your credit score is good, you can get your loans, or even if you want to buy a new car, you can go for anything that you dream of, right? If a lot of the economy actually is driven by loans and financial support from the big banks, etc. India is just not yet ready for that. But now with this crisis, probably it's going to change and probably go down that route. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Additionally, I think India has had some legacy problems. This is my personal view that the way we have tried to divide small, micro enterprise, medium enterprise, somehow we disincentivize them from moving to the next level. So there's a lot of incentive in staying small, in not moving to the next level. So this also has kind of discouraged a lot of informal small traders from actually keeping books to invite banks. They are being formal because they see it as a punishment, moving to the next level. So there's a lot of effort to stay small. So I think that legacy problem needs a little bit of realignment, correction, especially in the Indian context. I mean, people need to want to become bigger. So that's something probably.
And maybe this is. I'm sorry. Please finish, Professor.
No. I'm just. That was the only limited point. Yeah.
So maybe this is counterintuitive, but if I am the owner of a small business, I want to make more money. There's a reason I started that business. There's a reason I feel passionate to not do a job and stick with my business, whether it's my family business or whether it's something that I felt passionate about. So I quit my job and did that, right? So there is it seems counterintuitive that you would want to stay small. That said, again, the burden and the responsibility doesn't have to always be on the government. The government has not. Any government. This is not an opinion, but any government is typically slow. They are slower than your private partners. What we have seen here in the US is companies like Intuit, QuickBooks, like Square, which has completely transformed that micro segment. And again, beating that example to death here, they have given the micro the farmer to come in the farmer's market, sell a box of strawberries, accept credit card, accept any form of digital payments in addition to cash using a simple dongle, right? So I think that's, I wouldn't want to say responsibility, but if anybody is going to solve it, it's going to be the private sector in India and anywhere else, to see that here there is a need in the market. There is this business who wants to grow, who wants to do his work more efficiently, and let me help him do that. And that's where the QuickBooks and the Squares of the world came in, at least in the US. So definitely an untapped market over there.
Yes. So we have some questions for Narayan. Like I was telling you, like you yourself made this point that a lot of the space and everything, we have very romantic notions, and many of us are fans of Big Bang Theory. So where, going to Mars has been it's been made a very accessible dream. So I have a question from one of my student audience here about space tourism. So I seem to have lost the question here, but it was a very...
There is no COVID in space, so I'm all for it.
Okay, so no, let me just put his question across.
Is the space tourism viable? That could be a good question.
One is, yes, whether space tourism is viable, and then okay, they say that there's a report that says that the potential market value is $3 billion by 2030. So not whether it's viable for the provider, whether it's affordable for maybe you and me to take a short trip to Mars or something like that. So what do you see happening there?
Again, I think there's a historical context that I would want to use to answer this question, because there's two camps of people who emerge in this sort of discussions. One who will say this is all fantasy, that'll never happen. This is only for some like entertainment at the end, or some kind of vanity as such. And the other that will say that it'll go to the extreme and say we're going to be living on Mars in the next 10 years. So I think I'm not belonging to both of these camps. I stand somewhere in the middle, and I want to take the historical context because of that. So when you look at what happened after the World War II, there was a bunch of fighter pilots that were around, and there were thousands of fighter pilots in all of these developed countries that had airlines. Airlines were not commercial then, they were military, and most of these pilots were all fighter pilots, right? And the first business airline that happened was between US and Europe, happened with business people taking the flight and former military pilots flying them between US and Europe. And that's because these businessmen were rich enough to avoid the journey on a ship for like 30 days. And they had the money to pay for the for the airline. And although the airlines were not as good, they had clunky wooden chairs, and you could smoke in the airlines, and the safety was not as good. But still, these business people, they took to the air and they flew between these, and they saved a tremendous amount of time, right? And that is what we can see with space as well, because the current systems are in development. Let's say Aditya is in US and he wants to come to Bangalore. I'm sure that he is going to take at least 20 hours of flying between wherever in BC to Bangalore today. And let's say in 15 years time, we can shorten that trip to 2 hours instead of 20 hours, and we can do that at a cost at 3x or 2x or 3x of what he would pay for it. And of course, if Visa looks at his time and then it says his time is more important for us than the paying 2 times the cost of the airline ticket, I'm sure that they're going to make that trip. And if we can prove as an industry that that trip is safe enough for him, then obviously somebody like a Visa will say, why don't we save the 18 hours of time that he'll have to spend and a few more hours of sleep and jet lag and everything else to
I'm all for it.
right? And then, you could also have this dream where basically, let's say, Manish is in UK and he wants to fly to Bangalore to Tech Mahindra for a meeting with the board or something. He can fly out in 1 hour, attend the board meeting from morning, have lunch in Bangalore, fly back to the UK and have dinner with his family.
Yeah.
All for it.
So there's a lot of enthusiasm for your ideas.
The other thing, and Narayan, keep me honest here, is that like all technology, all changes start like that, right? I mean, I do remember the first Tesla was like $100,000, but now Teslas are coming at the 20 grand, which is like a Civic in the US. So yes, technology, the first mover is more expensive. The first car was a lot more expensive than the 1,000th car. And just think about, again, I'm using space travel. I'm an enthusiast, but I'm nowhere close to knowing what it is in detail. But the technology that powered the man to go to less powerful than our smartphones today, right? So as Moore's law kicks in, this will be more and more possible. So in the spectrum that you mentioned, where this is a fantasy, it's not going to happen to we colonizing Mars. I am somewhere in the middle and the top right section of that spectrum, rather than a naysayer where this is not going to happen. Where else are we going to go, right? So yeah. I strongly feel that there is a potential there for space travel, and if you can afford it today, absolutely. Virgin Atlantic will take you there today. But in 20, 30, 40 years, just like people move from bullock carts to trains to aeroplanes, I think this is the next frontier.
And just to connect with the other industries, people don't know that the real value of space is for terrestrial industries. And since you guys were talking about financial payments a lot, that financial payments basically need some sort of technology backbone to exist. So without terrestrial communication technologies, there's no financial gateways for people to transact, right? So terrestrial networks only work when there is a certain amount of crowd, there's a certain amount of people living in a certain place, and people will not put up any kind of towers if there's not a critical mass of people. This is one of the reasons why you see 2 billion people or something not connected still. And that's because, purely because they live in geographies where it's very hard to put up technology and to make money off of that infrastructure that you can operate, and also for them to afford that and to pay for all the infrastructure on top of it to keep it running, right? So today there's companies that are using satellite technology that can directly connect to an Android phone without any new addition on their Android phone, and they're testing it right now from satellites. And so you can have somebody who is in sub-Saharan Africa who can use the service to directly make payments to somebody in any other part of the world without using any terrestrial networks, but basically using their Android phone directly with a satellite. This is being tested as of today. So you can know what will happen if those 2 billion people who are not connected come live tomorrow to the market.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So more and more transformation. I think that's what I'm hearing from all this. Manish, would you rather prefer that the world functions the way it's functioning today? I mean, connect through technology instead of connecting physically, because that would be good news for technology companies and all that they're developing now. They will see better use if people choose not to physically travel, but to be virtual.
A very good question. And I think that relates me or takes me back to the beginning of this lockdown crisis that started everything. Initially, a lot of us, in fact, the whole industry thought that, okay, the travel's going to go down. In fact, travel's going to go down to zero. All of us will start working from home. And there were some initial reports that, our productivity has gone up. Actually, our productivity is gone up 50% in some cases, especially in the software and IT industry and so on. You don't have to travel an hour to the office and come back, and then you have got more time to focus on the task at hand. But subsequently, I think everyone and all of us working from home have realized that you need variation. And at least for me personally, you need variation in life. You can't just do the same thing, get up go to the same desk and then, have the same thing within the same four walls. So to me personally, I don't think that will sustain for long. You got to go out, meet people, because we are all social. We need to get that human contact. We need that kind of touch. Otherwise, without that, just being a virtual entity, I think we will not get that kind of positiveness in our life. And from that perspective, there needs to be a balance that needs to be formed going forward. And I think the industry will form that automatically over the next 1 year or so. We will find that the managers in the IT industry or anywhere else, they're no more worried about, hey, why did you not come to the office tomorrow? I mean, why did you not come to the office yesterday? Because then there's a balance that is set. Then if the employee wants to work from home for a certain period of time, it is not frowned upon. Whilst at the same time, now the employee feels that he or she wants to go to the office because it makes them want to do that. So that balance will automatically come. And I think that's what will change for all of us. And it's for the better, I think.
And
for us,
I think that
it's been a blessing, because otherwise I don't know if we could have got this lineup of speakers, but for this kind of pandemic and but for this kind of thought process that has set in, bringing three people from three different corners of the globe and getting their insights is something that probably this pandemic facilitated. We would probably want to explore more and more of this option, because it's given us immense benefits at very marginal costs. So I think we will probably save up a lot of money traveling from here and there and save it for Mars.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So we are having some more questions on the chat box, but there's one question for Narayan. What prompted you to this space entrepreneurship, and how did you actually get around to starting SatSearch? So this is a question for you.
I mean, it was not something like, I don't know, like normally people always say in my industry that we had a dream to go to the stars or something like that. It's not something like that for me. I was basically, I guess, nudged by a couple of friends who were also looking at some of the problems that we had in the industry. And we thought that we could build something that we could we ourselves would want to use. So that's the best product that you can build because if it's something that you want to use by yourself and you can sell to the others, then it's easy to build it as well, rather than looking at what others have as a problem. That's a little bit more tougher to crack that nut. So we started building all of it, and our industry, just before the start, I was telling that it's a very big small niche. We are like a very small fish in an ocean that has whales in it, and we know, our industry is quite small in that sense, but it's not so small as well where you can't have the kind of growth that you can have. We've grown tremendously, like almost 10% month on month for the last 3 years as a company. So we see like ourselves as an industry that is on the horizon, that is growing, not just within Europe or US, but also in India, for example. So it's just that every technology has a different life cycle of maturity and how big it gets as a company or as an industry. You could argue about this, maybe 15 years ago of e-commerce in India. It was nowhere close to what it is today, right? So over 10 years of time, Flipkart became from like zero to like, I don't know, $1 billion company in such a short span of time. And there's a possibility of that happening for space as well. But the thing is, my message would be that don't focus on the fancy and the science fiction aspects of space. Focus on what value it adds to business and what value it adds to common man. Because for every ATM transaction that you go have in India, people don't know that there's a satellite link behind it that connects, banks. And people just go draw the money from the ATM, but they don't know the Visa terminal that actually enables the transaction, even if you are in, I don't know, like Andaman and Nicobar Islands, where you have an ATM line there, right? So that's the problem of the space industry that people have to solve. And that's the mindset that is needed if you want to enter the industry. Because if you want to enter the industry and you will say, I will become like the Richard Branson of the industry, you better come with like $100 billion in your bank to be the next Richard Branson. But if you're like a common person, like, like me, for example, I have no business background in my family and still want to enter the industry, you then look at what problems you can solve by using space as a tool, like any other tool. Like, Manish, I'm sure, is using telecom networks as a tool to solve certain problems. Aditya is using payment techniques and methods to solve problems that people have. And we are using satellite and space, technology as a tool to solving problems.
Okay, so I think this conversation is kind of leading us to a very interesting convergence, that we are actually not speaking to three different people or three different continents or three different countries, or, it just gives me a feeling that we are addressing a very common set of problems, very, very common. We are all focused towards a common set of solutions, and we are all probably moving only towards that. The medium we choose, changes. So which to that extent actually makes this pandemic only a context. It does not, I'm tending to agree with Manish now more and more that it is only setting a context for us to probably accelerate towards solutions that we all know are out there, and we may use satellite, we may use technology, we may use simpler solutions, but we are all focused probably almost on the same problems, because I see so much of overlap, which I had not anticipated at the beginning of this conversation. I had not anticipated this kind of convergence. So this is turning out to be quite an interesting conversation, giving me some very, very new kind of insights. So I would want to just put the next question to both Manish and Aditya. This is about the trend of, the increased digital adoption, giving rise to concerns of fraud. So, so how will the industries address it? So there are going to be technology solutions for fraud. There are going to be regulatory solutions. So there are going to be business-driven regulatory solutions. So from both perspectives, so maybe Aditya can take this, and then Manish can also add on to this. So this is a question about 419 cyber threats faced. That is the data that they are giving me in the question. So the cyber threats, how are we, as we move forward on this?
Yeah, so there are two components. So I want to differentiate between fraud and cyber threats. These are two different problems. They might seem similar, but they are actually very different. So cyber threats could be a malicious intent, not just from a person, but from an entity, from a country, right? So again, that is cyber threat, and you have experts, the cybersecurity experts, both at the government level, who are trying to protect the sovereignty of the nation itself, as well as the companies who are trying to protect their assets from being hacked and losing the data. So that's one piece of it. When I think about digital payments, that's a different type of fraud, which is where I'm trying to compromise your credit card and try to make a fraudulent charge using your credit card, your debit card, taking money from your bank account, so on and so forth. So interestingly, I have been part of large engagements with the companies here in the US, where the most powerful tools that we have in our disposal today are AI. So we have actually used AI to look at transactions, to look at all the parameters and the attributes of the transaction. Whether Professor Ranjini, she goes to Amazon.com typically at 4 p.m., between 4 and 5 p.m. Is this regular to her behavior? Are these the things that she typically shops for? Are these the transaction size that she typically shops for? So looking at data can be a very powerful tool in mitigating any sort of fraud from that standpoint. And it is a combination of data and people. So the solution that we put in place was, hey, something seems suspicious, but I don't want to stop Professor from making the transaction, because that is not a good experience as well. If you have to call up your bank and say, hey, why did my transaction get declined? Or why did you block my credit card? That's not a good experience as well. So how do you balance between the two? And the solution is the combination of AI tools as well as people, where you have that second layer of reviews when you say, okay, there's something fishy going on, but wait a minute, I can see that, 3 weeks ago, Professor actually purchased a ticket to travel to another place, and now she's making some purchases over there as part of her shopping, as part of her tourism, right? So that's the level of insight where the human and the robot comes together, and that's how you mitigate fraud from that standpoint.
And let me add to that. I think I'll first add to that from a consumer perspective. So when I came to the UK, we were still living in checkbooks, and cards were something there. They were important as likely you have that. But now there is contactless, there is mobile payments. Everything's just happening without any worry from me thinking that someone's gonna take away my password, or someone's gonna even take away my cash from the bank and so on. There's a lot of I think technology that has evolved to an extent where AI, as Aditya was talking about, but also from the perspective of banking and everything becoming quite mature, so that you don't have to worry about X amount of payment going out, and you are so secure. So, for example, my daughter lost her phone 3 days back, and she was all worked up, and she says, someone's going to take my data off and all that. No, it's not, because your bank has already thought about it. They have already thought about that, such a scenario could happen. So there is a workaround against that to happen. And likewise, if I look at from a cybercrime perspective, and I think that's a big area in my world as well, from a telco, and you must be hearing about Huawei getting ripped out of all the Western world and so on. There is a new set of regulations being formed within each country to define what should be your strategy in order to address that when you move more towards complex networks. You must be hearing a lot about 5G networks, and 5G networks are going to be so different compared to the present day networks, because it will give you all the good benefits of having gigabit speeds on the wireless, and being able to interact with gaming happening in the cloud, and you're working on your phone. Everything moving towards a consumer driven approach. And I go back to Aditya's point, right? It's the end customer's experience that is being set up front. What happens under that, whether it's security, cybercrime, or anything else, it will be taken care of for you. Yes, there will be challenges in addressing that, and that's where these startups and Dr. Narayan's area of interest for satellite, everything else will work towards providing that experience. And I think in the next 5 or 10 years, we'll see that. You're on mute.
Sorry. So that was quite a comprehensive, I think, address to our concerns, most of us, because we are, like you're saying, the younger generation is getting used to only digital transactions. I'm sure in about 10 years time, I have to explain in my classroom what is cash. And I'll have to probably try to make students, wrap their head around, at some point there was something called cash, and, we used to transact like that. So I'm just, so that's probably, I don't know whether it's 10 years or 20 years, but I'm sure it's going to happen sometime. Rolly, I just want to know how we are doing on time, because I want to get a little bit of kind of closing remarks from each one of them. So how are we doing on time? So, because there are a million more questions actually. This is a dream opportunity for my students. They don't get a panel like this. So they've inundated us with questions. So I just want to ensure we're not getting carried away.
Definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, we still have 8 minutes to go before we close the discussion. So, I think we can go ahead with.
So, does it leave us for time with 1 or 2 questions, or do you suggest we move on to the closing remarks?
Ma'am, I think we can go ahead with 1 or 2 questions and then close the session.
Because I just got a question on chat, which again reiterates what we have been discussing, the convergence, or or today there is no longer relevance about whether you're using satellite or whether you're using technology driven solutions, or you just want the transaction done. Like you're saying, you don't care about the back end, you just want a transaction, so you use everything. So it's a convergent world. So here is a question that asks, how will telecom landscape change with satellite based mobile networks like OneWeb and Starlink? Dr. Narayan, you want to take that question?
Sure. So there are many challenges and problems that people in the satellite world are trying to solve with respect to connectivity that these networks are going to tackle. So the simplest example is, I'm sure that many of you might have tried airline Wi-Fi or airline internet, which completely sucks. You know that the bandwidths are not good enough to do anything. So here's an example that I can give you. What if in 5 years, you can have your own personalized tablet in your economy seat in an airline that takes you from London to Bangalore, where you have complete independence to log into Netflix or Sony Live or whatever, YouTube Premium or whatever you want. And you don't have the certain selection of set things that the airline provides you as a list that you can only watch, but you don't want to watch any of it, but want to watch a series that you want to continue on Netflix or on YouTube or whatever, right? And you want to, let's say somebody is like that, somebody else is want to do their email without having to open their own laptops, and can do that sitting in their airline ticket, even at an economy class. Or somebody wants to speak to somebody else privately or whatever. So all of that needs bandwidth, all of that needs connectivity. And today these companies are trying to solve all of those kinds of problems, be it on a ship, be it let's say you have a car today that is a Volkswagen that is built here in Germany, and you take it to India, for example, on a drive. You're a crazy person, and let's say you want to be connected throughout to both your car manufacturer in case the car breaks down, and with your family back in Germany to know you're safe or not. And there's a flat panel antenna that goes on top of the car, which you don't even notice as a consumer, because that's in the body of the car, but it's an electronically steered antenna which directly connects to a satellite. So even the car manufacturer knows where you are, your insurance guy knows where you are, the safety guy who backs you up knows where you are, and your family knows where you are. And at the same time, you can have all the devices that you want to use for either entertainment or computation or work at the same time in the car, right? So these are some of the very advanced problems that need cross-border, cross-terrestrial network connectivity, which may not come at the price point if you go with terrestrial networks today, if you want to pay for it, because just between network operators, you have to spend so much money, going off with the handshakes. It might not make any sense for a consumer at the end. So those are the kind of problems that people are trying to tackle. And in countries where where they don't have the technology or any network provider who can provide the remotest of places of the world, and if those countries subsidize connectivity for their people, they can have their people access the internet and the benefits of internet, right? So that's the problems that all of these guys are trying to tackle. Even in a country like US, you have to know that I think more like 5 or 10% of the US is still not connected to the internet. They're still too rural for that sense. And even that is a market.
Mm-hmm.
So
can I just point out one more thing on that? I think if you see what's happening around the globe, I think satellite, yes, there is a big area to connect the unconnected. And if you have been reading about Facebook's internet para todos, as in Spanish, the translation of that is internet for everyone, right? So Facebook has been driving it. So there are these industry heavyweights who are driving towards getting connectivity to the unconnected. And whether it's going to need 5G, whether it's all about terrestrial 5G, which is going to give you huge amount of capacity to connect not just people's phones, but also you must be hearing this Internet of Things, wherein everything around your home or in a world that is technologically needed to connect to the network would be connected. So you would have your street lights or anything that needs to connect to the internet, and being able to provide you that kind of data that can be then taken to the central place to analyze and then work upon that. The most important bit to realize is that connectivity right now is primarily being driven from the user's needs. As going back to Dr. Anand's point, and Dr. Narayan's point, if there is a need and there is a value from a financial perspective or from a overall user's need perspective, it will be done. And I think that is where the business mindset of you all MBAs would be coming from. You've got to identify the need first and then look at what follows behind from technology perspective.
So I clearly hear a message for students, because one of these usual questions is what skill sets do we need? So that's a question that's coming here, but I don't think you need to even ask that question. If you've been tuned into these discussions, you will know that understanding customer experience, thereby, understanding customer problem, trying to solve the customer problem, that's the key. And that's where you're going to have to contribute, as professionals. I think that's where you have to see how you can contribute. So I just want to take some closing remarks from each one of you, especially what are the green shoots that you see in terms of opportunities. So I want to start with Aditya.
Sure. So again, I mean, great conversation, by the way. Thank you for conducting this thing. There are two things as you embark your journey, and you might have been in the workforce before. You might have decided to switch gears, or you might have this might be your first exploration in the workforce itself. There are two things to keep in mind. One is how agile you are to meet whatever is going on in the marketplace. Some of it might be in your control, some of it might not be in your control. Your success is being determined by how you react to it. Some folks, again, to use a word previously used, go gloomy and they are, whining about it. Some folks do nothing about it, and then there are the other folks who actually take off that as an opportunity to see, hey, is there something that we can do here to come out coming out better for myself, but also for the people around me. So that's important. Be agile, be nimble, and just go with the flow, right? So that's number one. Number two is, and this is more technically driven, we are in a connected world. It is going to get increasingly connected. So anything you can do about digitally upskilling yourself, you are doing yourself a favor. So any opportunity you get, to learn a new skill, to think differently about an existing traditional legacy problem, keeping the advances that we are making in technology, that again, you're doing a favor to yourself and the folks around you. Finally, pause, be empathetic, think about the folks who you surround, and make it an environment where people want to partner with you, want to foster that environment of innovation, sparking ideas, be a yes and not a no but, right? So anything you can do to just be empathetic to your surrounding, that will take you a long way to being the leaders that you aspire to be. So those three things, I would say, I think you'll be all set.
Thank you so much for that. Truer words have never been spoken. That's what I should say. Manish?
Thank you. Again, I echo Aditya's words. To class of 21, I would say that I think there are specific industries you've got to be focused on. You've got to be focused on pharmaceutical. You've got to be focused on what's happening on the retail industry, what's happening on the technology and the space around everything that is driving the economy to continue to grow. So just do a Google search yourself and you will find that there are some industries that are doing phenomenally well. So I think that's what I would say to the class of 21. Class of 22, what you probably need to be doing is to build your social connects in spite of all these setbacks, in spite of what is happening around you. you have your family with you, you have your teachers and professors around you who are able to guide you and make the best out of the current situation. Probably it's a blessing in disguise. You've got more time to think about how you will project yourself 2 years from now and work on it better. Right. And overall, I think it's, although I'm saying that the industry is just going into a transformation, I think you both years are actually placed in the best position to make the most out of it. So go there, and then I'm sure that your own internal transformation will actually make it happen for you. Thank you.
That's so wonderful to hear. I'm very certain that there's this energy that the students are going to carry back from this today's session. So we will also take the closing remarks from Dr. Narayan.
So in closing, I say thank you very much for having me, and also listening to Manish and Aditya has been really insightful. I would say from my end, don't fascinate on the technology itself. Fascinate yourself on the problems ahead and how can you solve. It can be space, it can be whatever it is. But essentially, you've got to know what are the problems in the real world, and if you are from that background and you've been there, you've spent 3 or 4 years knowing about a particular problem, and let's say you see a certain technology that can solve that particular problem, then go ahead and do your experiments with it. And some of us have been doing it with space, some of you may be doing it with some other technology, but at the end of the day, we are all trying to solve certain niches and problems. And we, of course, always open to people who are coming from different industries to adopt space as a solution in their industries. So it could be, solving the problem of financial inclusion with satellite terrestrial connectivity background. It could be somebody who is going to use satellite imagery to solve the problem of, land with respect to productivity. It could be insurance. It could be, so many other problems with respect to disaster management, or many other problems that are going to come up. Or it could be somebody who is going to solve problems of climate change, air pollution, modeling satellite-based sensors to insurance schemes with respect to how each city has with pollution. There are many ways that can use space and satellite-based technology to solve those particular problems. The question is, how well versed are you with the problems of that industry, and how can you connect with us as professionals in our industry to make the bridge and to construct business models that can not only solve those problems, but in turn can make money for the shareholders in both the industries as such, right? So those are the bridges I think you'll have to construct. And of course, this needs, it may not be a traditional industry that you would talk of in business cases or case studies in your business schools or even engineering schools. But I'm sure that this is something that you need to discuss internally as to how you can begin these as conversations where people can systematically over time enter industry like they have entered many others industries as business professionals coming into, and hopefully we'll have many of you join us in our industry in the coming years as professionals in the satellite industry.
So I just want to leave two thoughts. So one is that in a world that has a lot of problems, I think today we had a panel who is a part of solutions. So we had with us three very, very exceptional individuals who have been completely focused on solutions. So I think that's a very great takeaway for all the audience today, that if one has to make meaningful contributions, one has to really focus on how to be part of solution. Not focus on problem at all, but mostly focus on how to be part of a solution. So to that extent, I think we have had today, we've had the honor and privilege of hearing from three very different individuals, three different experiences, three not necessarily divergent industries, maybe even convergent, but three different industries bringing in very unique perspective, but mostly focused on how to be a solution provider. So I think this is a very key insight for all the listeners today, I am not exaggerating when I say that I'm highly inspired and I feel very lucky to have moderated this session. One more thing that I always feel is that I should have been a student now. So I would have, I would have been lucky to be, getting this kind of, sitting in my drawing room, I can't think of how privileged and fortunate my students are to be listening to minds like yours. So from my personal side, please accept my heartfelt gratitude. I'm now handing over to Roli.
Professor, you're shaping 1,000 minds. So you are playing that role. Absolutely. Every day, every year. We can't appreciate professors like you enough. I mean, I think about all the teachers and all the teachers who helped shape me to who I am. I thank you for taking up this profession.
That's
it's truly really noble.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I echo the same. Yeah.
Thank you so much, panelists and our moderators. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us on a Sunday. And it was indeed an enriching experience hearing from every corner of the world and from such diverse yet convergent sectors, like from finance to technology to space, and how they are interrelated. So due to some reasons, our director, sir, Professor Manoj Tiwari, won't be able to join us now, but he would be joining in a few minutes. So I would like to invite Miss Professor K.S. Ranjini once again to close the session.
Okay, so given a choice, I would never close it. I would, I would just take it ahead a little more and more. So there are still a lot of unanswered questions. Like I told you, we've been having a flood of questions. But one thing that I want to, moving away from, say, technology or moving away from the business angle, we do see, you did mention it, Manish, when you were speaking, about how we cannot, confine ourselves to this closed space. And after all, we are social beings. We would need at some point in time to meet each other, greet each other. So is there something that you would like to share with the younger generation of people? There is something that I observe that on their own, they prefer to be more and more isolated. They prefer to be more connected with technology and less connected with physically the people sitting around them. So it's not a very uncommon sight today to see families all sitting in one room, but each one of them, on their mobile phones. So in fact, to be very honest, I'm mother to 2 teenage sons, and I don't really see a major change in their lifestyle at all. They were in their laptops and mobiles before. They are still in their lap. Now they have a legitimate cause to be there.
No, it's a very good point, Professor Ranjini. And I think, all of us, at least in my age and coming through those days when we used to have a lot of social connect as a child and go out and play and all. I don't think that we should worry too much about it. We really need to let them develop their own way of working in this world, right? I mean, so just recently, I've been looking at. So we have been locked in our home for the last 6 to 9 months now, and I've been seeing what is happening with my son. So he's in high school; he's just finishing up school now, and with my daughter as well. So my son's having remote lessons and everything, but on the side, he also has his friends talking to him on his headphones. Right, so he has that kind of connect already that he really needs for that. So they are going to develop that need themselves. I don't think we can help them or guide them towards using the same principles as we used to. I have another example, right? The French, for example. If you go into a French office, they're so used to that anyone who walks into the office, he's going to shake hands with everyone else in the same room, right? And that's not happening anymore. It cannot happen. I mean, you can't go and shake everyone's hand because they are so wary of this thing that's actually making them not do it, but they will work around it. And that's the same thing. I think, the next generation and the generation after that and all, they're working around it in a different way. Their method of communication is different, but they're still social beings. They're still, if you notice, they're still posting a lot of pictures on their social media accounts. They're still communicating. They want that appreciation from other people. They want to appreciate others and so on. Just that the medium has changed.
Okay, that's a very nice positive way of looking at it. You're telling me not to yell at my kids.
I mean, they will find their own way of doing it, because success happens when your mind is free and you're developing as you think is the right thing. Of course, you've got to have boundaries. Of course, you've got to live in a certain direction going forward. There needs to be guidance from parents. They need to listen to parents, and it's not like feel free for all thing. But at the same time, I think their times are different. Our time was different. That's what I look at it personally.
Yeah, you were just about to say something, Aditya.
No, I mean, I was just I echo Manish's sentiment, but just it's again going back to what we were saying, right? It is how the consumer wants to consume in this case, right? We are all business students here, so let's go back to that, right? Whatever, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would have gone to your friend's house, sat together with them, had lunch with them, so on and so forth. But now we are connected, and I want to talk to somebody at 2 a.m. in the night. I would prefer to do that because we are both playing that Fortnite game and we are both talking to each other while doing that, right? So that's that. But I don't want to discount the merits of actually being physically together. And one of the things that we are actively thinking about at Visa is, okay, we have been remote, we have been locked up in our rooms and in our homes for the last X months or so, but what does back to work look like? So one of the things that we as part of the leadership have been thinking actively is, what does that model look like? Does it go back to 5 days a week? Absolutely not. Is it, hey, just it's free for all, don't have to come at all? Not as well. So what we are trying to figure out is, we hire smart people, we hire responsible people. So let's give them that decision. So if you will, along with your team, can determine that, hey, I don't need to be sitting in my office if all I'm going to be doing is reviewing PowerPoints, checking emails, analyzing data. I don't need to be in my office. I can do that wherever I want to do. But if it is a innovation session, if it's an ideation session where we need to bounce off each other's idea, when we need to create something different that requires us to be in a conference room with the tools that we need that are available in the workplace, sure, let's go to the office in that case, right? So it's the path that you carve for yourself. It doesn't have to be the extremes.
So the medium just doesn't matter at all. So we are moving to a era where the medium is irrelevant, the end
that's a good
goal
thing.
is what is more important. So I just want to kind of engage you with a slightly different question, Dr. Narayan. Maybe the next generation of people, they're all going to enter into their professions now, and they will grapple with a very different work style. Being connected to the office, or, having to be connected to their colleagues, they're probably never going to feel that need. They will be more effective using, hybrid methods of work. How do you see that culture evolving?
I can give you an example of my own company. I have colleagues basically living in 4 different countries, and we actually, don't have any kind of hard system. Although we are a young company, we can afford to create our own systems. So I can tell you that we don't have any mechanism that tracks people within the company. Of course, there are metrics that we track on, but we don't physically track how many hours each person is working, or when they choose to work, or how they choose to work. And all of us in our company work from home, like for the last 4 years since company. So they can work from wherever they want. If they want to choose a WeWork, they can go work there. If they want to get an office for themselves, they can go get it. If they want to prefer, having their own drawing room or their kitchen, whatever, so long work is done, if they meet their tricks and so on. So at the end of the day, I believe that there is a certain challenge to professionals, because there are certain professionals who come from the previous generation, who want to have the suit, they want to have their cars, they want to drive to their offices, they want the environment to get in the mood. They have a very balance between two environments. And for them, I've seen my uncle, who's a director in Bosch, and he keeps telling me, I cannot work at home, basically because I've not ever worked at home for like 30 years now. So he wants to put on a suit and wants to go to his drawing room, even though it's the middle of the pandemic, to get into the mood to work. And he wants to have the coffee break at 12 and meet colleagues at a certain time to that thing, because there are people are just used to it for the last 30 years who've been in the system, right? But what the new generation wants is extremely different. We have a colleague who's newborn, has born 6 months ago, and he wants to have the liberty to work whenever, so that he can support his partner, and we cannot expect him to do the same thing that normally people would do 20 years, where you have the wife, and the wife can quit her job, and you just take care of the family by attending the office. And so there's a very space between personal and professional lives, and the intermingling of those two are very interesting for business today and for companies, and especially if you want to maintain talent, because the big challenge for most companies today is actually keeping talent, right? So there's a very famous quote that many people keep saying, right, that people don't quit companies or something, and they quit managers. So it's like that, so basically I guess these are some things that are very fluid, and it comes from which generation of business you come from, or which environment you start off from, and where do you end. And there's some who are like in the established networks there, and they have a legacy system which is very hard to change. And there's some who are very dynamic, and they can change very, very quick and adopt a lot. And even you see companies like Twitter or so on, right? So they have very fast changing company, like environments for people who are doing business or work them. At the end, they're still a bigger in sense, right? So these are touching on all of these things, and ultimately you want to have the workforce commit to your goal and the vision as a company. And there are certain set of challenges organizationally that people will face, but that's the conversation that you need to have within the organization to know what will make people both professionally and personally happy.
Yeah. I think that's a really nice summary. That's also, I mean, this kind of conflict is something that this generation of professionals need to be ready for. Different people being comfortable with different kind of work culture. So inside an organization, I think there are going to be multiple little spin-offs, different cultures, and then everybody has to figure out a way to live with these different comfort levels. So it's going to be, I think, a time of lot of adjustment for people. So I think we come back to where we started, which is transformation. We all are living in transformative times. We must be willing for a fair degree of transformation. So, so again, I think it's so beautifully put by all the three panelists.
So, Professor Ranji, but there's one more point, right? I think in the future, some things that's going to change is, and this is just my personal view, the social aspects of all of us will automatically come out, because now I can't go out. I mean, if I'm going out, I have to be very restrictive, and I can't really communicate the way that I used to. I'm not able to go to the office very often, and so on. So a lot of things will define what happens at home for me. So from that perspective, family would become a key construct for all of us, going in the future. that safety net of having, and all of most of us, in fact, are having this comfort that we have the family to fall back on. We have a social fabric that that will catch me if something's going to go wrong. And I think that has to play a big role, and that is going to become much more apparent as we go along, because the social outside connects are reducing, inside connects have to increase.
Definitely, sir. I think we, as management students, we couldn't have a better opportunity to engage with top leaders from around the globe and draw such beautiful insights. So once again, I would like to thank you all. And I would like to conclude the session by thanking Mr. Aditya Betala, Mr. Manish Singh, and Dr. Narayan Prasad for their invaluable time. We are privileged to have listened to your perspectives, and I believe all of us who have listened to the discussion today have been grateful for the same. I would also like to thank the NITIE fraternity, especially our director, Professor Manoj Tiwari sir, and our Dean Student Affairs, Professor Hema Dade, for supporting us to make this event such a success. I would also like to thank the moderator, Professor K.S. Ranjini ma'am, for moderating the session in such a seamless manner. Finally, I would like to invite the organizing team, the Prerana Management Group members, to click a virtual photograph with the guests. So, I would request everyone to switch on their camera.
We are good to go. Thank you.